Hello! Welcome back to Boxes and Bubbles, where today we're looking at the Variants #1 from Marvel. Written by Gail Simone, with art by Phil Noto, and letters by VC's Cory Petit. Marvel uses the multiverse pretty often, and while it's a nice way to break the rules a bit for characters who, for, let's be honest, business reasons, have to be kept at a steady status quo, I'm not really the biggest fan of seeing new and different versions of characters who ultimately can't stick around. I also have to admit that while I thoroughly enjoyed every Marvel movie in the last 4 or 5 years, and of course loved countless comics, their TV shows have never really done it for me, including the older Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and Jessica Jones. These things combined mean that the pitch for the Variants didn't appeal to me on any front. It's about Jessica Jones, a character I'd previously only encountered in a TV show in which I felt she was difficult to like, at least in the handful of episodes that I gave it, meeting multiversal versions or variants of herself. You might ask, then why did you bother reading it? Because comic creators are magical beings, and I'm about to show you why. As almost always in comics, we've got the visuals and the dialogue by different people. A trite plot idea, skillfully executed by a great writer, can be so much more than a description of it might suggest. Just ask Kemonozume and let the right one in. And when paired with an excellent artist, the result is so much greater than the sum of its parts. In comics, 1 + 1 can equal 5, and when it does, it's just the best. So right away, we've got this beautiful cover by Phil Noto. Phil's an artist whose work in some of the Mutant books I've really admired, but this was my first time seeing it outside of Krakoa. And while it was just lovely back there, it's gorgeous in this more real-life setting. Phil was also on colouring duties in this book, and uses this really kind of earthy colour palette, which gives some places a really cosy feeling, and others a feeling of darkness. But the version of darkness that you get in cities that isn't really dark. Early on we see Jessica looking right out at us quite often, and her eyes are really striking. It gives her that intensity that she had back in the TV show, only in this story, Gail Simone has managed to make her a lot more likeable and interesting with excellent use of her internal monologue. We've got a very caring, vulnerable Jessica right from the jump. None of what makes Jessica Jones is gone, but in this book we see her trying to move on from her past rather than stewing in it and raging about it. That doesn't mean that she can't still throw down though when the time comes, as you'll see later on. At the start, Jessica stands outside a coffee shop, which was one of her old haunts, thinking about how she couldn't stand to be around people unless she was in a particularly black mood. She's using the past tense, so right away we can see that it's a departure from her previous character and that she's moving on, or at the very least trying to, because of Luke Cage. She calls him beautiful and endless, and begins to reminisce about how on their wedding day, she wanted to be beautiful and endless for him. We see her going into a store and trying to buy some nice lipstick. This sequence is so short, but there's so much here. In the opening monologue, she mentions a black mood. Black is also the colour of lipstick that she asks for at first, to which the sales assistant replies, "For a wedding?" After that, we get this double-page spread of Jess trying out all kinds of colours and having a talk with the sales assistant, who we find out is named Brenina. This is such a cool visual metaphor for Jessica trying to figure herself out, trying to change that black mood she was so often in before into something else, but not really knowing who she is yet without it. "There are over 200 shades here, ma'am," she said. "Each one will make you a completely different person." And Jessica says, "Take me there." Yeah, she wants to become somebody else. It's super refreshing to see something so normal taking place in a comic book, but also for it to be a woman shopping for makeup is awesome, in a space largely dominated by manly man superhero types. The last part of this scene is so great too. Brenina spends half an hour with Jess, who tries on a whole bunch of lipstick before picking one out. She tries to thank her, but Brenina gives her a hug and says, "I'm so happy for you. Go be happy for you too, okay?" How lovely is that? It was such an unexpected and sweet moment. I got a huge kick out of that little interaction. And look at Jessica. She doesn't freak out or pull away, she just accepts the hug. Back in the present moment, after her reverie, Jessica's migraines start acting up and she begins to faint. Daredevil swoops in and saves her from a fall, but also talks her into a favour. Maria, an acquaintance of both Jess and Matt, is about to have a court hearing. She burned her house down with her family still inside it, and he says that nobody is there to support her. Matt asks Jessica to go along to the hearing, and she grudgingly agrees. She goes home to Luke, but she has a bad dream. She dreams about Kilgrave, the man who had control of her in the past. All throughout, that inner monologue is letting us know what Jessica's thinking. She thinks about Matt and how much of a good guy he is. She thinks about how the blind guy didn't like her outfit, and she thinks about how perfect Luke is. All of those thoughts are showing a softer side of her, again distancing her from that old angry version of herself. Over the course of the issue, I came to really like Jessica, a character I previously found pretty much unlikable. It's wonderfully done. The memory about the lipstick, and now Jessica again referring to Luke as perfect, makes it feel to me that in Luke, she's found somebody who makes her want to become a better version of herself. It really feels like there's a lot of growth for her here. Since she slept so poorly, Jessica decides to get herself a coffee before going to the court hearing, and has a run-in with some gangsters who are leaning on the coffee shop for protection money. She messes them up, all the while looking cool and sipping on her coffee. Yeah, she's softened, but internally. Only internally. At the courthouse, we quickly find out why Matt was so insistent that Jessica show up. Maria claims that the Purple Man, Kilgrave, who as far as anyone knows is dead, controlled her mind and made her commit the arson. That shouldn't be possible. After the hearing, Maria requests to speak to Jessica and explains that she doesn't want Jess's help. She wants to warn her. Kilgrave left a trap in her mind, a way to control her and force her to do something without needing to give the instructions in real time. A trap which sprang itself 10 years to the day from when he kidnapped her. Remember Jessica's rough night? She says that she dreamt of the world's ugliest anniversary. Tomorrow is that anniversary. 10 years since she was abducted by Kilgrave. And those headaches she's been getting, passing out yesterday? What Maria said is looking pretty reliable. She calls Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk, for some backup and heads home. When she arrives, it feels off. Her family aren't there, but she knows that someone is in the apartment, and guesses that whoever it is with Kilgrave. She leaps on the intruder and she lays into herself. Moments later, another Jessica also arrives, but that's definitely in spoiler territory, so you've got to pick the book up for yourself to find out why her appearance is such a surprise. The artwork was gorgeous, the story and dialogue were full of weight and meaning, along with being a little lighthearted and fun in places. We've got an action sequence, and there is that twist reveal ending. There was so much here, yet it was all paced and flowed so nicely. This was a stellar first issue. So an interesting start to a beautiful new series. There's the mystery of the variant versions of Jessica Jones, but personally, I'm more interested to see where all this takes her as a character. But that's all for this one. If you're interested in any other books that came out recently, have a look around the rest of the channel and give me a follow on Twitter @BoxesandBubbles to hear about all the books I read every week, but don't have time to make videos about. That's all for this time, but I'll catch you next time. Bye bye!